Mm. Post some stuff really quick. I'm good in just a second. All right. I think we're good now. I think we're good. So hopefully this live stream I don't troll like I did last week and have an old thumbnail posted that just deceives everybody. That was good. It was a good time. Oh man. So let's start going as people join, any questions, feel free to ask. If you're watching it late for whatever reason, about 9 o'clock, we got 3 hours till kickoff. So, plan on going, just staying live for like an hour-ish, maybe more, maybe less, but, just want to go over some ways to tackle today. So if you guys have any questions and you watch after the video, just comment. I'll respond to them. So injury news that affects players. I had some stuff. Tampa, possibly having some injuries helps, Jared Goff in the offense. So let's do a kind of. I like Jared Goff today. He's one of my quarterbacks in my pool. So let's do a Jared Goff type of roster construction. So I like Jared Goff. Jameson Williams, questionable. Seems like he's going to play. But I really like Amon-Ra, his matchup today. So I'm going to do a Amon-Ra stack with Jared Goff. This is a high total. I think it's going to be a high total game. So I want somebody on Tampa's side. Although I do think Mike Evans is still a really good play. I'm going to lean Godwin in the slot. So I'm going to stack that up at 6,000. So kind of expensive stack to start, but the way week 2 is, especially if you're doing cash, right? I think everyone's playing Jordan Mason. You kind of have to, and it's not bad. Like if Jordan Mason doesn't have a good game, Jordan Mason is going to be, I would imagine, 75% or higher owned on DraftKings. I'm not sure about the FanDuel price yet, but like out of all the running backs that are this cheap, like Gus Edwards is on the board. I think Gus Edwards is going to have a good game. If you wanted to get away from Jordan Mason, you want to fade the field, and you're looking for a running back that can compete with Mason, although it's pretty hard after the game Mason just had. It's Minnesota's defense. They will have good games this week, or good games this season, sorry. Minnesota's defense. Gus Edwards against Carolina. I know people are on Dobbins. I like Dobbins, but I think Gus Edwards has a touchdown upside this week. I think Gus Edwards could possibly see 2 touchdowns in this game. And if you're trying to get off Jordan Mason and you don't want to play the field and you're looking for another cheap running back, Gus Edwards is there. Justice Hill is the same price, $5,200 against Vegas. Although I do like Vegas' defensive line in this matchup against Baltimore's offensive line. That's still another option. But going back to the roster construction, on this one, I'm going to go cheap on a tight end. Minnesota's good against the run. But the usage Mason got last week, like 28 carries, there's going to be opportunities where he's going to hit a hole. In the receiving game, just 1 for 5. But like I said, if you're talking fantasy and not DFS, or you're doing tournaments, it's good to get away from Mason. like I said, there's two other running backs at the 5,200 spot to really go after. Gus Edwards would be the preference, but still. Tight end, we're looking to get away. Obviously, I don't have anybody in the Rams-Cardinals game, so in this one, I'm just going to go cheap and get Parkinson at 3,100, kind of get my salary back, so we're at 5,300. In this one, I think I want to tackle a defense in this, so let's go with... We'll pay up for one. I really like Pittsburgh this week. I never like paying up for defenses by all means, but I think Pittsburgh's defense is really amazing this week. Cooper Kupp, I think is one you're going to see a lot today too. If you're playing cash, like, let me do this really quick, and I'll put everything back. If you're doing cash, this is where you start every lineup. Like, it's pretty hard to not have your lineup look like this when you're playing cash. Like, that should be your intro, and then you figure everything else out. I don't think there's really that much more cash plays. Like, I think quarterback, I've talked about it in my quarterback video. There's a lot of good plays at quarterback this week at pricing. Goff is a good play at his price. Jane Daniels is a good play at his price, 6,200. Matt Stafford at 6K is a good play. Baker, again, 5,900, a good play. Daniel Jones at 5,300 is a good play. So you could go a lot of areas, but I recommend just Mason Kupp is kind of your build. But going back to what we had, so put these guys back in, Amon-Ra and Godwin, and at the defense, like I said, we'll put Pittsburgh back. I want to pay up for defense on this lineup, but it's kind of a good start, right? You get 3 guys in the highest game total currently, and then you have another guy in a very high total. Open up FanDuel. Devin, no. I don't want to look at FanDuel prices. That's crazy. But going to running back, you could go different ways in running back. I like Jonathan Taylor this week. The one thing I want to mention is Josh Jacobs, 6,500 against Indy. And the reason I'm mentioning this is DeForest Buckner has not practiced this week. Green Bay's probably going to rely upon Josh Jacobs with Malik Willis as their quarterback. So Josh Jacobs at 6,500 against Indy without DeForest Buckner could be a really good payoff, in my opinion. You also have Derrick Henry at 6,700 against Vegas. Look, he played Kansas City, who's, they have Chris Jones. Like, it's pretty hard to run against that team, especially up the middle. Vegas does have Wilkins, though, which is concerning. But I think overall, Baltimore running backs are going to be used again heavily. So, oh, God. Used heavily, sorry. James Conner's definitely worth mentioning at 6,400. You saw how much usage he got against Buffalo. He faces a Rams defense that got destroyed by David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, Gibbs 17.4, Montgomery 16.3. James Conner got majority of the work. That's a lot of fantasy points Detroit running backs got. So James Conner's worth mentioning. You keep going down. Zach Charbonnet is now worth mentioning at 58. I wish his price was different. I wish Zach Charbonnet's price is different, but I'm assuming DraftKings had Ken Walker out, which is why they have his price this way. Yeah, there's a $500 price difference between Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet should see majority of the work, like just looking at from a DraftKings price versus just depth chart. They have Kenny McIntosh, which I think Kenny McIntosh, the reason I liked him is just the receiving back for Seattle. So I'm not really concerned about it. Yeah, it's going up against New England, but I imagine Zach Charbonnet is going to get a majority of the work. You saw how New England and Cincinnati played each other. It was a close game, so it's not like I expect New England to, offensively be a really good team that pushes the pace. So Zach Charbonnet should get a lot of work in this one. Washington running backs. I get Aaron Jones had a good game, and Robinson and Eckler got a lot of receiving work for running backs, but the Giants have a good defensive line. They really do. I'm kind of skeptical of taking either one, especially with both of them getting the usage they did. Zeke for tournaments. I'll throw the name out, Zeke for tournaments. New Orleans could be dealing with a few injuries, 2 on their defensive line. Marshawn Lattimore likely out as well, so New Orleans defense can be pretty shaken up. So Zeke is goal line back, right? He gets in the end zone when they're in the red zone. So Zeke's worth mentioning in this one. Najee Harris 5,500 again is worth mentioning. Against Denver, Najee 20 carries last week. Like, a lot of people were worried about Warren, and then they bring in Patterson and they're worried about that. Pittsburgh's going to run the ball. Like, the thing you have to know is Pittsburgh's going to run the ball. Now, the question that you play every week when looking at Pittsburgh, what Pittsburgh running back is going to exceed? Because Arthur Smith's going to run the ball. They're going to rely upon their defense, which they did against Atlanta. They did not care if they kicked 6 field goals to win the game. They didn't. Like, they're like, hey, that's a win. That's a win on the road against Atlanta. They're just going to run the ball. They're going to force offenses to get crazy and try to push a pace and make turnovers that way. So Najee is going to get carries. Warren will probably, if I had to guess, I didn't see much on Warren's practice reports this week, but I would imagine Warren gets used a little more this week than he did. J.K. Dobbins, definitely worth mentioning, 5,400 against Carolina. I mentioned Gus Edwards. $200 more than Mason is J.K. Dobbins, right? Carolina's run defense is terrible. They were terrible last season. They were terrible last week. And now, their best defensive player, the defensive tackle, is out for the season. So that hurts Carolina's defense that much more. So, yeah, you definitely want exposure. Now, I would assume more of the field is going to play Dobbins and Edwards, because if you look at Dobbins' numbers, which, good for him, the way he's been able to come back after 2 major injuries in his very young career, the way he comes back, first game back, 10 for 135, a touchdown, 3 receptions, 25 DraftKings points game 1. And you look at Gus Edwards, he still gets 10 plus carries. So it's not saying that J.K. Dobbins is so far ahead. So you could fade Devin, you could fade Mason. And there's 2 guys at his price point you could fade him for. It's Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. In cash, I don't recommend fading him, though. Like, he's going to be so high owned. Like, he's going to be 75% owned. What'd you send me? You're beautiful. I appreciate you. Like, he's going to be so high owned, it's not going to hurt you in cash. In tournaments, yeah, you could easily get away from him. Edwards, Hill, you pay up a little more. Dobbins, Harris, like only 300 price difference. I don't mind the 300 price difference there at running back. So at running back, that's kind of where you're at. So for this build, I'm gonna we'll throw a running back in here. I'm gonna throw. I want a run back piece on Arizona, so I'm gonna throw in James Conner. Maybe I'm gonna throw in James Conner. Now we are pretty cheap at tight end. There's a lot of opportunities cheaper for tight end this week. Tight end is just ugly. We had Colby Parkinson 3,100 in our lineup last time. I'm okay with doing it in this one. It's going to save us 3,700 for flex. It's kind of scary. But yeah, Parkinson 3,100 against Arizona. That's a piece. For the sake of the video, we're gonna go. I'm gonna switch Connor out. And I think let's go for the sake of this one. Let's go Najee, and then that switches us up. So one of the guys in the flex that I like this week, if we go down and find him correctly, Wan'Dale Robinson, 4,300 against Washington. If you can't pay up for Malik Neighbors in this one, Wan'Dale is just as good of an option, right? Week 1, 12 targets, right? Now, yeah, the Giants were down all game. They were throwing the ball a lot. But Washington is down now 2 starting corners. 2. They're a bottom 5 defense in the league. They're playing a terrible offense. But a bottom 5 defense in the league is missing 2 of their starting corners, which means 2 backups. Now, the backups could be better than the starters, but typically with corners, coaches get that right. Now, you're putting faith in Daniel Jones, which, if there's a week to play Daniel Jones and get a return, it's this week. It's scary saying that because it's Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones, out of all the starting quarterbacks in the league, is the worst starting quarterback, right? I don't think he's done anything in the league passing-wise to make himself a good quarterback. Rushing-wise, like, people talk about his rushing upside. I look, well, he has one career game over 100 rushing yards. That is, for a guy that runs the ball quite a bit, that is terrible. He's not the most athletic, but that is terrible. So that's a lineup we do. We can obviously make changes anywhere. Like, I could switch out Najee for Charbonnet. But I get exposure in the Tampa-Detroit game. I get 3 guys. I get a stack on Detroit, and I get a run back at Godwin. I have the 2 cash plays in Mason and Cup. Like, those are your 2 you're going for. I punted tight end, which I think is a good week. I paid up at a defense in Pittsburgh. And then I get exposure in a game that I think is going to be an over in the Giants and Washington. Now, it could not be an over, right? It could be an under, but these guys could still see some volume. So that's one lineup. We'll do another one. We will go... Is there any build any of you want to see before I start this? Is there any, like, quarterback, or is there any game you guys want me to kind of tackle and throw a lineup in? If not, we'll just throw one together. But anyone has a request, I'll knock that out first and try to go from there. So if there's any players or games that you guys want me to try to attack, just comment. If not, like I said, we'll get into another build here shortly. But yeah, tight end, before we do anything, tight end's got some injuries this week. Hockenson, we already knew, was out. Njoku got announced out early this week. Ferguson likely out. So there's opportunity there. So for Njoku, you're looking at Atkins down here at 3K. Bryce Young. Devin, if you don't give me a legit quarterback to go after, I swear, I have not looked at Carolina's offense at all. The one thing I will say about Carolina's offense, though, I would watch Joey Bosa. He's been questionable all week. It could benefit Carolina, I guess, but Aikens likely to be the starting tight end there. Shoemaker likely to be the starting tight end for Dallas. I'm not really interested in either or right now. So let me do a solo build. So this is going to be Jaden Daniels at 6,200. I don't want anybody else with Jaden Daniels. I don't want a single person with him. We're going to knock this out. We're going to go a cheap defense. We're going to go Green Bay 2,600. We're going to knock that out. We're going to go running back, right? I'm going to get different with this line. I'm going to play Jonathan Taylor against Green Bay. I'm not. I picked Packers defense. I'm out of my mind. We'll pick Derrick Henry against Vegas. And then we will go down and pay a running back. And we will go... for this one, I mentioned Gus Edwards. We'll play Gus Edwards. So, current Baltimore running back, former Baltimore running back. So, like I said, I'm going to get different. I'm going to get Amari Cooper. That's if you guys are looking for a good tournament wide receiver today, Amari Cooper is one. Why? Jacksonville is missing Tyson Campbell. Jacksonville is missing Darnell Savage. I think Campbell's on the IR. Maybe done for the season, if I can remember. I'm trying to remember. But Darnell Savage, their safety, out of the game. So you have two guys out in that matchup. I'm going to go another guy, and I'm going to get... We'll get different in this one. So I want to pay down for somebody. I'm going to pay Malik Neighbors. I'm going to target somebody from the Rams in this one. And we'll go... Not Winnington. Where's Let's go Robinson. Let's throw Robinson in there. At tight end, I'm going to put Kelsey against Cincinnati. And I did not mean to keep clicking. And then we have 7,000 for a flex. And you know what? Let's throw... It's kind of a toss-up. But Ladd. I think this is a really good tournament play. I'll explain why just really quickly. Jane Daniels rushing upside against the Giants. I mentioned their secondary is bad. If Washington could throw the ball, this will be a good one. Derrick Henry against Vegas. I like Baltimore's rushing against Vegas. They're high favorites. Want to target Derrick Henry instead of Lamar, who did it. Gus Edwards against Carolina. I think people are going to overplay Dobbins and less play Edwards. I think the opportunity is there. Injuries for Jacksonville. Heard a stat today that Deshaun Watson did 70% of his first read targets. So Amari Cooper. Malik Neighbors is a run back in that game. Denard Robinson, as you know, people are, I imagine, are going to play Kupp and Johnson. So I'm going to play Robinson. Travis Kelce facing a defense that is terrible against tight ends. I'm going to get some type of Kansas City. Debo likely to see a lot of volume. Packers. So now, yeah, I saw Devin comment Ladd McConkey. I have him in my player pool this week. Josh Palmer was questionable. It seemed like he was going to be out leading up to today, but I saw Schefter tweet that Palmer is supposed to be in. It is a good matchup for McConkey. I'd rather Palmer be out, though, before I start targeting him at wide receiver. I'll go and I'll just do another wide receiver we did running back. CeeDee Lamb's facing New Orleans, who could be without Lattimore. They ran a lot of man coverage. CeeDee Lamb is one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver against man coverage. Amon-Ra against Tampa Bay. He didn't get used last week. I think he is going to get used this week. Injuries to Tampa's safety already out. We know that. Cooper Kupp, definitely 100% of play. Mike Evans, if you're looking to get, I feel more people are going to play Godwin than Evans. So if you want to get leverage, I guess, you're paying a lot more for Mike Evans. There's that for an option. Devontae Adams, not a lot of people are looking at him. Only 6 targets, 5 of 59 last week. Baltimore's out Nate Higgins, forget his last name. He would be the corner that Devontae would probably see the most. Had a good week 1, so he's going to see a backup majority of the game. Deebo Samuel against Minnesota, yeah, he's just, you saw last week, right? 9 targets, but he gets 8 carries, so that's 17 plays for Deebo. That's how you have to look at that one. Rashee Rice against Cincinnati. This one's definitely worth targeting as well. Amari Cooper against Jacksonville. I mentioned that one already. Godwin, I mentioned that one. Neighbors has the upside this week. I mentioned Washington down 2 starting corners, so you have that as well. Terry McLaurin. I do like Terry, but after last week of how bad Jaden Daniels screwed me with Terry McLaurin, that one hurts. Keep going down. I want to say Adam Thielen has the best matchup for Carolina receivers. If for whatever reason you want to play a Carolina receiver, Jonathan Mingo is also there, but That would be the guy I'm looking at, unfortunately, in that one. McConkey, if Palmer's out, I really like McConkey this week. Down more. Wandell at 4,300. Robinson at 4K. In that one, I think you can get leverage. I think he'll probably be the lower owned. Yossi Voss, 3,800 again against Kansas City. You can get burned again, but 3,800 is not really going to burn you. And then we get cheap at wide receiver. There should be a couple names down here. So yeah, Johnson for the Rams, 3,300. Alan Lazard, right? He got benefited of his game. Like, I don't think most people would have thought Alan Lazard gets 26 DraftKings points week 1, but he did, and he's still very cheap. So at 3,300, yeah, you could go there. Now, let's do a Kansas City one. I know that one could be good, so I'm gonna double stack Mahomes. I'm gonna go old school, and we're gonna double stack immediately. So I'm gonna go Rashee Rice. I'm going to go Travis Kelce, and we'll go from there. So I think to make it easier on this lineup construction, we're going to throw Yossi Voss in there at 3,800. That allows us to get some money back. For running back in this one, I am going to throw in James Conner. I'm going to get exposure to that game. Running back as well, I want to get I think I will pay down for Jordan Mason, 52. Defense in this one, we took Green Bay. On the other side, let's go Patriots at 2,800. Let's throw that in there. It gives us some money. On this one, I am going to pick Cup. That leaves us 4,300 for a flex. And that's kind of at that price point of Wandell. So I don't have any exposure in that one. Wandell Robinson there at 43. And that's a route you could go. This is a Kansas City, Cincinnati game attack. No exposure in Tampa Bay, Detroit, which kind of not the greatest thing. Yeah, I don't have a Charger player. I don't have a Vegas player, or a Baltimore player against Vegas. That's a route you could go. We'll do a very, very pay down play. We'll go Daniel Jones. We'll throw Malik Neighbors in there. We'll go running back. We took Mason last time, so let's not do Mason. Let's do Najee in this one. Play him. The other running back, we're going to play upside. And we're going to assume DeForest Buckner's out, and we're going to play Josh Jacobs. We're going to go to tight end. We're going to pay down at tight end. And if you wanted to double stack, honestly, Daniel Jones, Theo Johnson's down here, 2,600. Worth mentioning. But we're going to get Parkinson. Wide receiver, we could pay up. I want to get exposure. Let's get... So let's just double switch it. So we'll get Godwin. And then let's go down and we'll add Jameson Williams, 5,300. That leaves us 62. We're going to pay up for defense just because we can on this slate. Let's go Jets defense. We're going to really pay up. And 8,600, we have a lot left over. And we'll go Amon-Ra. 500, we could switch there. So, you can go that route. If you wanted to get Dak is usually a quarterback when he pops off is typically leading DFS. I think he is pretty expensive. We're definitely stacking it with CD, though. I don't want to run back anybody on New Orleans. Obviously, we're going to have to pay down at positions, so we're going to double punt running back. We're going to go Mason, and we're going to go Edwards. That'll definitely help out our roster. We're going to pay down at defense since we paid up so much for a quarterback, wide receiver stack. And let's target Patriots defense. I think that should save us up quite a bit, and it does. Wide receiver. We're definitely gonna get a cheap wide receiver, and then we should be able to pay for everybody else. So let's go. Let's go Johnson in this one. We'll throw him in at 6K. We get the straight up always Godwin. Tight end, we should be able to get somebody in this range. Let's go Isaiah Likely at 4,800. 72, we kind of have some options. Would have rather got up, but I think kind of where I'm looking at for this one would be maybe Rashee Rice, and then we play somewhere else, like we pay up for a defense or something like that, but that's kind of the route to go there. So there's still some injury news I'm waiting on. Should hit in about 37 minutes is where a majority of this is. For the late games that we're looking at, T. Higgins for Cincinnati is kind of what we're looking at there. No one really for the Rams or Arizona, so everything else is probably going to be straightforward. So gonna call it there. If you guys have any questions, just comment. If you guys want to join us, the link for our Discord, I'll end up putting it in, will be in the description. You guys can click it. If you guys want my spreadsheet for today, if you guys want my bets and props that I have, all that will be in our Discord. Just message me if you guys have any questions there. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was a good time. Plan on doing this every Sunday that I have off work. I plan on doing this, so every week we'll try to do this. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll hope you have a good DFS. Devin, I'll talk to you in the Discord here shortly. We'll go over some stuff. But yeah, have a good one, guys.